Day 2 all. So myself, Dr. S.SIVAKUMAR, Associate Professor, Department of Mechanical and Automation Engineering, PSN College of Engineering and Technology, Tirunelveli. So today we are going to discuss about some points on the topic of alternative source of fuels for the IC engine. So before going into the topic, we have to find or we have to discuss so what are the need for an energy and how we are getting that energy and what is the major source for the production of this energy and how we are converting these kind of energies. Clear. So first of all, energy is the primary source for the propulsion of this present world in mostly all of the sectors. Clear. And some of the sectors are like automobile industry or the automobile sector, and the or which is nothing but the transportation sector. And the second sector is the agricultural sector. Next one is the industrial sector, and finally main is the power production sector, and some other smaller sectors also there. Yeah. So these are the four major sectors which consumes or which produces the energy. Clear? So most of these sectors uses the crude petroleum products for the production of energy. Clear? And the major reason why the consumption of crude petroleum products goes on increases is the increased population and the improved industrialization or the major reason for the increased energy consumption, and which causes the increased consumption of the crude petroleum products also. So the reason behind the dependence of crude petroleum products is purely based on the first law of thermodynamics. So from the first law of thermodynamics, so energy can neither be created nor destroyed, and one kind of energy can be converted into another kind of energy. So from this statement, that is first law of thermodynamics statement, we can able to easily understand that we cannot able to create an energy, but one kind of energy can be converted into another kind. So it's similar to the crude petroleum products also. That is, the chemical energy that was stored in the crude oil is converted into the heat energy. So from the heat energy, we can able to convert our required kind of energy conversion. Clear? So in the same way, chemical or the fuel energy obtained from crude oil was converted into heat energy and then into mechanical energy when this crude oil is used as a fuel in an IC engine. The medium or the machine in which the energy conversion is taking place is known as the heat engine. That is the process in which the chemical or the fuel energy is converted into heat energy is known as the heat engine. Clear. And in general, there are two types of engines are available. First one is the external combustion engine, and the second one is the internal combustion engine. So what is the difference between these two type of engines? So in the external combustion engines, best practical example is the steam engine that was used in the locomotive trains, in olden days train. That is, the combustion is taking place outside the combustion chamber, or otherwise the working fluid is contained internally and it was heated by the combustion in an external source through the engine valve or the heat exchanger. So these kind of engines are nothing but external combustion engines. And the working fluid expands and acting on the engine mechanism to develop the work, or otherwise the energy conversion process is taking place. So this is the schematic drawing in which the external combustion engine works, and this is the practical engine what we had used in this previous history. Nowadays these external combustion engines are become absolute. The reason why these engines are not in use is due to the complex nature of its construction, and it was simplified by means of the internal combustion engine, or simply says the IC engines. The working fluid, that is in the IC engines or the internal combustion engine, the working fluid is made to burn inside the combustion chamber or the engine chamber, and which produces the heat energy and which is converted into mechanical energy by means of the some mechanical components that was connected to the engine arrangement. That is, in the internal combustion engines, IC engines, chemical energy of the fuel is converted into heat energy, and again this heat energy is converted into mechanical energy by means of the arrangements like a piston, connecting rod, and the crankshaft, and so on. So this is the major difference between the IC engine and the external heat engine here. And in general, the developments of the IC engine starts from the 19th century onwards, and still the researches are going on. IC engine is potentially far more efficient than the external combustion engine, and which produces more power output than the external combustion engine. In addition to that, there are some other reasons also there. The reason why we are moving from the external combustion engine to the internal combustion engine, and some of the reasons are like industrial revolution, flexibility of engine, availability of fossil fuel, simple construction, quieter and cheaper operation, higher power to the weight ratio, and so on. There are many more reasons why we had shifted from the external combustion engine to the internal combustion engine. During the year of 1832 to the 1891, that is Nicholas Otto is the first person who developed the Otto cycle, and which uses the petrol as fuel, which produces the energy source for the IC engine. And later that Rudolf Diesel, who is the inventor of a diesel engine and who introduced the diesel cycle during the period of 1858 to 1913. Both petrol and diesel fuels are refined from the crude oil by means of the fractional distillation process. That is, crude oil is the major source for the production of petrol and the diesel fuel by the process of fractional distillation. So, in general, crude oil is a dark and sticky liquid, and which is a mixture of different chemicals or no something like that hydrocarbons. While boiling the crude oil, the liquid on the distillation column, it is separated into different liquids and gases, and are used to make different fuels based on their physical and the chemical properties. And each liquid has its own specific properties like a viscosity, density, calorific value, flash and fire point, and some other properties also. In general, worldwide consumption of the crude oil goes on increases day by day due to the increased population and the increased industries. On the other hand, the availability of crude oil goes on vanishes. This is mainly due to the increased consumption of the crude oil and its byproducts. And this leads to the massive gap between the production and the consumption of the crude oil. And as the consumption increases, both production and the processing cost of crude oil also increases, which inflates the fluctuation in fuel cost. In order to overcome the scarcity of the fuel cost, that is, in order to overcome the scarcity and fluctuation of the fuel cost, it is mandatory to find a suitable alternative source of fuel for the internal combustion engines. So this is not only the reason why we are moving for an alternative source for the fuel. In addition to that, we are having some other drawbacks like pollution problem. That is, the combustion products which was emitted from the combustion chamber also increases the global polluting gases. So this is also a major reason why we are looking for an alternative source for the conventional IC engines. During the World War I and II, and in the year of 1970s, crude oil scarcity crisis around the world, and this initiates the searching for an alternative fuel for the IC engine. So in this chart, what we are seeing is that there is a gap between the both the world production of the crude oil and the consumption of the crude oil. We can easily identify that this blue line represents the production of crude oil, and this orange line shows the consumption of the crude oil around the world. See, from the year of 2016 to year of 2021, and we are having the projected or the forecast analysis for the consumption and the production of the crude oil. So from this graph we can easily understand that, see, this graph was taken in the year of 2021, 2021 in the first quarter, and during that period the consumption of the crude oil was slightly higher than the production of the crude oil. So this may leads to the fluctuation in the fuel cost, and this is due to the scarcity of the fuel. Yeah. And apart from the scarcity of the fuel and the fluctuation of fuel cost, hydrocarbon particles emitted during the combustion of fuel leads to the environmental problems like a global warming, depletion of ozone layer, formation of smoke and smoke, acid rain, etc. And these points I give a small instruction in the previous slide. Stringent emission norms were implemented throughout the world to reduce the polluting gases emitted during the combustion of petrol and diesel fuels. European countries assigned the norms as Euro norms 1, 2, 3, and so on from the year by year. Since 2014, Euro 6 norms were implemented in European countries with the stringent emission norms. In India, we are having the emission norm in the name of BS, that is the Bharat Stage Emission Level, and it was implemented as the BS standards 1, 2, 3, and so on. Since 2020, BS 6 norms were implemented throughout the nation in order to avoid the pollution problems. So these are all the some of the constituents, how much quantity that is to be present in the exhaust gases in both petrol engine and in the diesel engine. That is, CO particle is to be present in this range, that is a 0.5 gram per kilometer, which comes in the emission norms of BS4, whereas in the BS6 norms, the CO level is same. On the other hand, the NOx level is to be reduced in the BS6 norm. So this is for the diesel engine, and for the petrol engine, the same NOx value is 0.08 for the BS4, and BS6 it is 0.06 gram per kilometer. So in this way only the government stringent the pollutant norms. And next, what we are going to see is that what are the alternative sources for the fossil fuel. So in order to overcome the scarcity and depletion of crude petroleum fuel, emission level and the fluctuation in fuel cost, it is mandatory to find a suitable alternative source of fuels for IC engines. Different alternative sources were available in both renewable and non-renewable forms. Some of the major parameters to be considered while selecting an alternative fuels are: first one is that wide range of power availability, period of operation between refilling station and refilling timing, high power to weight ratio and small space for more power, specific fuel consumption, and so on. So these are some of the parameters what we have to consider while selecting an alternative fuel that is to be used in the IC engine, or that is to be replaced in the IC engine. Different alternative fuels have their own merits and demerits. Some of the alternative fuels that can replace the IC engine, which are as follows: LPG, CNG, alcohol, biofuels. These are the type of fuels which can be used in the existing IC engine without replacing it, and some other vehicles that can be used with the replacement of existing IC engine. That is, we have to remove the engine components, and we have to use a new base platform to use these kind of alternative sources. Some of the sources are electric vehicles, hydrogen fuel cell, blends of. So these two categories is to replace the existing IC engine, and the last one is the blends of alternative fuel with the fossil fuel, and this can be used in the existing IC engine with or without making any modification in the engine. It is to be noted that while using alternative fuels in the existing IC engines, it may neither require nor the modifications in the engines. So, and these are all the this table shows the some of the physical and chemical properties of both the diesel fuel, petrol fuel, ethanol, CNG, hydrogen, and the acetylene gas. So, and the properties discussed here are the density, auto ignition temperature or the self ignition temperature, stoichiometric ratio that is to be used in the engine, IC engine, and next one is the octane number, flammability limit, adiabatic flame temperature, quenching diameter, minimum ignition energy, maximum flame speed, lower heating value, or otherwise the calorific value. So these are all the major parameters. Based on these parameters only, we can able to identify whether the kind of alternative source can be used as a fuel in particular either petrol or in the diesel engine. And in the forthcoming slides, we are going to discuss about some of the possible alternative sources. And in the first thing is that we are going to discuss about the LPG, which is nothing but liquefied petroleum gas. It is a byproduct of crude oil during the refining process, that is the fractional distillation process. It can be used as an alternative fuel for the petrol engines, and this is mainly due to the similar properties of the LPG and the petrol. And this is mainly due to the major difference is that LPG is in the liquid, in the gaseous form, whereas petrol is in the liquid form. This is the only difference. While using LPG as fuel in SI engines, some modifications are mandatory and care must be taken while using it in petrol engines. Some of the modifications and the accessories needed are we need a gas storage tank, and we need a vaporizer, solenoid valves, secured pipe connections to the carburetor, changeover or the fuel selector switch. So these are the major alternative modifications that is to be used in an engine while using LPG as the fuel in SI engine, that is the spark ignition engine, or there is the petrol engines. And the merits or the advantages while using the LPG as fuel in an IC in an SC engine is that no need of major modifications in the engine, reduced cost per kilometer, similar functioning of petrol fuel. It burns completely eco-friendly and reduces the polluting emission level. And it has some demerits also. And some of the demerits, or that is the limitations, are occurrence of cold starting problems and some jerk, slightly increased weight of the vehicle and reduced power to weight ratio. Prolonged usage may reduce the lifespan of engine components. Additional one-time investment. Particular attention is needed for maintaining the LPG tank. So these are some of the drawbacks or the limitations of the LPG while using it as a fuel in petrol engine. And the next one is what we are going to see is that CNG, that is the compressed natural gas. So it is nothing but the methane gas is in the compressed form. That is the methane gas we had compressed, and we have stored it in the cylinders. And this is also a byproduct of kind of byproduct of crude oil during the refining process, and can be collected from the animal waste also. That is the methane gas can be used as the fuel. It can be used as an alternative fuel for both petrol and diesel engines. While using CNG as fuel in CA engines, some major modifications are needed and care must be taken while using it in the engines. Modifications and additional accessories are as similar to that of LPG kit, and merits and demerits of the CNG powered vehicles are almost similar to the LPG powered vehicle. And the next alternative source is the alcohol. Either we can use methanol or ethanol as an alternative fuel to the existing IC engine fuels, either petrol or in the diesel. Mainly extracted, this is alcohol is mainly extracted from the different crop industries, and which is a byproduct of the fermentation process. Pure alcohol has similar physical and chemical properties of the fuel and can be used as an alternative to fossil fuel. Presently, 5% of ethanol was blended with fuel, commercial fuels. Pure alcohol can be used in the engine with slight modifications in it. 15% of alcohol addition was implemented in the US since 1990 onwards. Presently, in India, we are having the 5% of ethanol addition in the petrol fuel in a testing method. And we are having some merits and demerits for the alcohol also. And some of the merits are no need of major modifications in the engine while using it in a blend ratio. That is, if you are using in some percentage mix, then there is no need to make any modification in the existing engine. It burns completely, eco-friendly, and reduces the polluting emission level. It delivers high power than the fossil fuel. It can be blended with fuel in any proportion. It reduces the cold starting problems. It is a major issue in an alternative fuel. Some of the demerits or the limitations are possibility to corrode the fuel supply system, which is made in contact with the water vapor. Slightly increased fuel consumption, which is due to the lower calorific value. Care must be taken while handling and storing, or some of the limitations of the alcohol. And next, what we are going to see is the biofuel or the vegetable oil. So it is nothing but the oil derived from biomass sources from the plant, seed, and so on. It can be used in the existing IC engine without making any modifications, and can be blend with diesel fuel, and some biofuels can be used in engine as it is, or otherwise the straight vegetable oil can be used as a fuel in existing IC engine. And while using these kind of straight vegetable oil, we may need some modification in the existing IC engine. And next point is that both edible and non-edible oil can be used as an alternative fuel. And some of the vegetable oils that can be used as an alternative fuel are sunflower oil, castor oil, soya bean oil, corn oil. And these kind of oils comes under the category of edible oil. And in the countries like India, or otherwise the developing countries, government is not insisting to use the edible oil as an alternative source. On the other hand, the developing countries like India are encouraging the usage of non-edible oil as an alternative source to the existing IC engine fuel. And some of the non-edible oils are like neem oil, jatropha oil, pungamia oil, rice bran oil, and so on. And this biofuel also has some many merits, and it has a limited number of limitations. Most of the advantages are it is a biodegradable material, it is a non-toxic, and it is a renewable one. Similar physical and chemical properties of diesel fuel, complete combustion and improved emission characteristics, easy in handling, storage, and transportation. It has a low sulfur content. The engine components life were increased if we are using the biofuel as fuel. It has better lubricating nature. And very few limitations or the demerits of the biofuel are conversion process is needed. That is, we have to convert the biomass into a biofuel by some other process like a trans-esterification, some direct blending or microemulsion or some pyrolysis process, and so on. It has a low C10 number, and there is a possibility for the formation of gumming. It reacts with the rubber material, so the rubber material gets eroded while using biofuel as a fuel in the existing IC engine. And the next one is the electric vehicle. And the electric vehicle, as we already discussed, it is a kind of alternative source which replaces the entire IC engine platform, and it uses a new platform. And the electric energy is used to run the motor which propels the vehicle, and it can be used in addition with the IC engine. That is a hybrid vehicle, simply we can say that, or otherwise it can be used as a pure electric vehicle, EVs. Regenerative braking system can be used to charge the battery. Energy is not consumed while vehicle is in the stationary condition. Higher energy conversion efficiency, overall full range of speed and power output can be controlled precisely. Choice of selection is available in hybrid electric vehicle. And one of the best example for the hybrid electric vehicle is that Toyota's Prius model. And nowadays more new different kind of electric vehicles or electric two-wheelers are available in the market also. And it has some advantages and the disadvantages, or there is the merits or the demerits. No tailpipe emission is there in the electric vehicles. it has the higher initial torque. It is a reduced cost of recharge, increased stabilization in the road, and due to this is mainly due to the higher increased lower weight. And some of the limitations are reduced operating range, refilling duration and the refilling station, availability of refilling station, higher weight to the power ratio, higher initial investment and the maintenance cost. So these are some of the limitations of electric vehicle. And the next one is that hydrogen or fuel cell. Fuel cell vehicles uses hydrogen gas to power the electric motor. Hydrogen gas powered vehicles replaces the existing engine with the electric motor, and thus entirely a new platform is to be designed while using hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. Fuel cell vehicle combine hydrogen and oxygen to produce the electricity, and it is powered entirely by the electricity and works similar to the electric vehicles, and which is better than the electric vehicle also. It has some advantages and the limitations. It also has no tailpipe emissions, operating ranges and refilling process comparable to conventional vehicles. It cuts the emission by 30% compared with the IC engine. Regenerative braking system can be used to charge the battery. And some of the limitations are producing hydrogen itself can lead to air pollution, which forms the greenhouse gas emission. Care must be taken while handling the hydrogen. Availability of the refueling station are some of the limitations of the hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. So, now we are going to see about the what are the methods to convert the alternative fuel. As I already told that. So we have discussed in the previous slides, some fuels directly can be used as an blend with the both petrol and diesel fuel, and some can be replaced with the existing IC engine, and some of the fuels like LPG, CNG, alcohol can be directly used in the IC engine. On the other hand, electric vehicle and the hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, there is need to replace the existing AC engine with the electric motor. And biofuel obtained from the biomass can be used in existing IC engine either with or without making any modifications. In order to use the biofuel as fuel in IC engine, biomass is to be underwent any one of the following conversion process, which is known as trans-esterification, pyrolysis or thermal cracking, or the direct blending and so on. Yep. So first what we are going to see is that the trans-esterification process. It is a type of chemical conversion process in which the vegetable oil with longer hydrocarbon chains are broken into smaller ones. Vegetable oil is made to react with an alcohol in the presence of a catalyst, which produces or the product of this reaction or a kind of ester with a smaller hydrocarbon chains and the glycerol. And now the glycerol can be replaced, that is separated from this mixer, and the smaller hydrocarbon chains can be used in blend with the diesel fuel. Catalyst and heating can be used to improve the rate of reaction. Conversion of triglycerides into ester and glycerol is nothing but the trans-esterification process. And the next one is the pyrolysis or the thermal cracking process. It is a type of a thermal decomposition of biomass in the absence of oxygen or in the vacuum condition. This process enhances the energy density of biomass resources. Desired product with desired chemical composition and physical properties can be achieved. Product of pyrolysis of biomass includes biochar, bio-oil and gases like methane, hydrocarbon, hydrogen, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. And the byproducts or the products of this pyrolysis process are it will have a higher energy, and it is easy to handle, store and transport in the combustion applications. And some of the testing methods of the alternative fuels are the suitability of alternative fuel can be, that is to be used in IC engine, can be carried out by examining or conducting the performance and emission characteristics in an IC engine, in an engine. The different blends may be prepared and fueled in the engine to examine the performance and emission characteristics. Obtained results may be compared with the results of base fuel, that is the diesel fuel. From the comparative reports, best suited fuel blends can be selected for the further studies, and about that particular alternative fuel. So these are the some of the possible or the scopes that is to be carried out in the alternative fuel. The study of the engine components while using alternative fuel in the engine for a prolonged usage, effect of changes in lubricating oil properties while using alternative fuel, effect of changes in the fuel supply system, on-road testing, kinetic analysis of combustion, numeric analysis, study of flame propagation, and so on. So these are the some of the further studies or the future studies that can be carried out in an alternative fuel. So with this, we are going to wind up the session, and thank you.